Greetings. You're listening to Rebels Remembered, featuring Caitlin DeFord and Kelsey DeFord.
Greetings, travelers across the galaxy. I am Kelsey.
I am Caitlin.
And this is Rebels Remembered. And today we're looking at Season 2, Episode 14, Legends of the Lasat. This originally aired on February 3rd, 2016. The synopsis reads, the Ghost crew are surprised to discover 2 refugees are surviving Lasat. Spoiler alert. Right in the synopsis there. Zeb must come to terms with his past to help his people reach their new home. This was written by Matt Minchavets, who also wrote Stealth Strike and Lost Commander, so a writer that we've already seen in Rebels so far in Season 2, I guess. This was directed by Saul Ruiz.
And Saul, he directed quite a few episodes of 3. Alright, so some trivia for this episode. One of the most memorable, I hadn't seen this episode in a while, but to me one of the most memorable things I do remember in this episode was the music at the end where they see the star anomaly and Zeb's got his bow rifle ready. This beautiful music was inspired by the works of Philip Glass, who, if you look him up, his resume is so long. He's an accomplished pianist. He's done many works for film and TV. But he's done one film that I know you love, The Illusionist. He did the music for it.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So that score, while the score for Rebels is written by Kevin Kiner,
yeah, he's
this
awesome too.
music was inspired by the works of Philip Glass. So,
I haven't seen The Illusionist in a while. I need to just for the music. The music's gorgeous.
Chava, who is the older, wiser, elder Lasat, she refers to her belief in Ashla. And in early story treatments, Lucas referred to the light and dark aspects of the Force as the Bogan and the Ashla. Also, it was Ahsoka's early name in early drafts of Clone Wars, which I find interesting.
That is interesting because Ashley Eckstein voices Ahsoka, so
Ashla, it's kind of funny.
I do know that when I heard it, I was like, that sounds familiar. I don't know why, but even like going back, I mean, even before we rewatched it, when I first watched it, I was like, Ashla sounds familiar to me, so I don't know if I had already heard the little trivia about Lucas, but yeah.
So we start this episode, and, you know, we've seen episodes of some of Sabine's past, and we get some more closure with Ezra and his parents and that whole story arc. We finally get an episode around our favorite muscle of the group, which is Zeb Orrelios.
Yeah.
And for once, everybody's together in this episode. It's been a while since the whole crew had been together.
Yeah, that's true, because I think they were playing with the different dynamics. But yeah, I didn't think about this being like where they're kind of all back on the Ghost versus 2-on-2 kind of pair-ups and things like that. Yeah.
I think for the story it made sense to have them together because this is such a big thing for Zeb. It's kind of nice to have his
adoptive family there.
So we start this episode with the Ghost arriving at an outpost. As the crew disembarks, Hera tells Ezra she's proud he's taking the lead on this mission, which I found interesting. But where did he get the intel? He got it, spoiler alert, from one of your favorite people, which is Hondo. And they see some Imperials. I think they were trying to rescue refugees, is the whole point.
Yeah, and I also don't know, I'm sure it's on Wikipedia, or Wikipedia. What planet are they on? It ever does say it looks like an icy kind of planet.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't matter. But they never did really say where they were.
It just says an outpost.
Yeah.
They see some Imperials moving some cargo out of container. And I found this part interesting as they're moving out the container. Everybody's kind of hidden behind this wall, and Zeb's the last person to kind of poke his head out and see that they're Lasat, which I found interesting. Which is a big moment for Zeb, because as an audience member, we thought they were all dead.
Yeah, we assumed that Zeb is, like, it.
Yeah.
I don't remember what episode. It's way back in season 1. That's how long it's been since we visited Ezra. It's been a long time since we've revisited Zeb's backstory. And we have the whole thing with him and Callus fighting. And Callus is saying he's the one that gave the order to kill off all the other Lasats. So, yeah, it's a very big moment when you're like, oh, there's 2.
Yeah.
Is there more? You know?
They reveal the refugees to be Lasat. Zeb, who long thought he himself was the last of his kind, is shocked. He springs into action, bashing bucket heads, while Ezra blasts the commander with his saber gun. Then a familiar voice is heard, and it belongs, of course, to Hondo, which he kind of flip-flops around in this episode.
He does, and it's just to serve him. You know, he's still very much the pirate that he is. Because even when they meet him, he's holding this rather large box of, I assume, credits that he's kind of clutching. And, he's like, oh, I knew that they were refugees. I knew they looked like him. I knew you'd come in and save them. So, we're good, right? But you still got your credits for the refugees that you delivered to the Empire.
Yeah. So after they take out some of the Imperials, the refugees recognize Zeb, and it's revealed that he is a captain. They refer to him as captain. And bow in respect, which I find interesting here. Even Ezra says, like, you're a captain, and she's like, he didn't tell any of us that he was a captain, which I find interesting.
I think we knew he was in the honor guard, but we didn't know what his position was, I guess.
And we'll get to it later, I think why he didn't tell them what his rank was.
Yeah.
But yeah, just one little drop of, like, backstory a little bit for Zeb.
Yeah.
So there's two Lasat. One is a bigger gentleman with a beard, and he introduced himself as Gron, and he said he served under Zeb in the honor guard. So he was actually a direct subordinate underneath. I guess if you're going to do ranking, yeah. And the older woman is an elder named Chava the Wise. They have not forgotten Zeb or Lasan. And I remember when Gron introduces himself, he's like, I don't know if you remember me. And he's like, you look familiar. Like, which makes me question how many people were under your command,
Oh, I didn't think about that, yeah. That's a good point.
Well, this is Chava. I don't know if you remember her. And Zeb goes, yeah, I remember her. And it's like a kind of a... the crazy lady. Not say that,
but
like...
I also do wonder, like, how does he know her? And he has this sort of disdain, which I think is hinted at, but, like, originally I watched this, like, okay, what's your relationship with this older Lasat? What did she do to you? Kind of thing.
Yeah. Zeb seems troubled. He said it was so long ago. That's why he says he didn't tell them why. He's like, oh, I just,
Which is him copping out of their actual reason.
Yeah, I think so. Ezra, however, is determined to get them back home. And as they're leaving this area, Hondo's like, am I going to get paid? And Ezra's like, you never were.
Yeah, and Hondo's reaction to that, oh, I've trained you so well, like, I, didn't expect anything less,
But then, after they leave, he switches sides again when the Imperials are looking for them.
And keep in mind, this dude just got a bucket, heavy box of credits, and he's want more. But I think that's just him being the pirate that he is. They want as much financial gain as they can get.
It's revealed to Zeb that they are heading toward Lyrasan, home prophesied in ancient writings. Now, that leads me to this point. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get into it. It's been a while since I've seen this episode. It's not particularly one of my favorites because it gets a little...
hippie.
Yeah, like... mystical. Very mystical.
Yeah.
Which I think... To me, I think it was like... Zeb is like, this is just a bunch of baloney. I felt that as an audience member. I was like, are they really thinking, like, it's a prophecy and Lyrasan is supposed to be, like, prophesized to be our home or whatever? And I'm like, is this real?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I was feeling that, because in their realm of culture, they're talking about the Force, I think, later on, when they're talking about the Ashla and all that. But it is kind of a big concept to wrap your head around, I think.
Yeah, I mean... I don't want to use this analogy because I think you're meant to feel that way as an audience member. I think that's the way the writing is sort of written to where... Now, I mean this in a nice way. If someone younger was watching, it's like a younger kid, they might be like, oh, they have another home. They might not be as... Yeah. Because we grow up and we get other crap that comes in our head. And, and that can't possibly be the truth. But when I saw this, I guess because we we just had Halloween a couple of weeks ago, I thought of the Great Pumpkin. And I thought of, we're obviously separated by denominational differences. I think that in this moment is Zeb and Chava, and, you know, him thinking it's just a bunch of hooey. But I think it's more than that for Zeb. It's, okay, this is a false hope. Like, you're going to be disappointed when it doesn't turn out the way you want it to.
And Zeb counters that, like Lyrasan comment, with, the only safe system for us was Lasat, and it was destroyed. There's no future destiny, everything is gone. So he's already made up his mind.
He's kind of accepted it.
Yeah. I thought I was the last one. I guess I ain't.
Of course, we don't know the timeline either. We don't know how many years before Rebels begins is Lasat destroyed.
Yeah, we don't really get an answer to that.
So,
Chava disagrees. She says they carry Lasat within them and will until they reach their new home. So immediately there's already a disconnect between Zeb and her. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting. I found interesting because she's a Lasat. Yeah. And you think he would be happy and like, this is my people. But even early on when he was like, you remember her? He's like, yeah, I remember. I'm like, oh. It makes me wonder if when he was on Lasat, if he also didn't believe in that culture.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Of course, Hondo has led the Imperials to them. But he does, interestingly enough, tells Ezra he warns him, but not enough time, because they're right there after he contacts him. So they fight them, and they make their way to the Ghost. And of course, Hondo has that line, another rescue by Hondo Onaka, which you didn't really rescue them. Like...
in a way. You know,
I mean, he did. There is a moment where he, like, closes all the doors to stop more Imperials, but you still... I don't know. Like, you still sold him out, but then you switched again. I don't know.
He does constantly flip-flopping. It's just to benefit him.
And then I have here in my notes, when they flee, stormtroopers have contacted Callus. So, Hondo gets captured. So, obviously, at this point, it's like, okay, they're going to use him to somehow get in touch with the rebels.
And interesting that they brought in Callus because of his connection to Lasat.
Yeah. So, on the Ghost, Chava says she does not know the location of Lyrasan. Of course, Zeb is still like, there is no Lyrasan. It's not even a thing. I don't know why you're still on this train.
And there's also a disconnect between Chava and Hera and Kanan. Like, they're like, oh, we have maps. You know, they're thinking in a logical sense and not a metaphysical realm, I guess. So there's obvious disconnect there as well. Because they're like, oh, we don't know where it's at. Which means if you're, I'm like, this, like, you're not helping your case at all. Not.
This one, she reveals, she has a ritual that can reveal their whereabouts. I noticed this part where Ezra kind of looks at Zeb and he kind of just, you know, is like that. And, like, it's interesting, like, their connection, too, in this whole episode with Ezra and Zeb, where he notices that he's uncomfortable and not feeling this Force Ashla stuff, but he still wants to help.
Yeah, and I think that's a growth for Ezra, too, right? He could just be the kid that he is and make fun of it and be just completely culturally insensitive and, and, you know, tease Zeb, like, oh, your people are kind of weird, you know. But, you know, him even, like, taking part in the ritual, even though he has no idea what he's chanting or saying, I think says a lot about him growing as a character. Yeah. To, like, want to help them. Now, whether or not he believes in what they're doing, I don't know. I think that's a different question, but...
Well, I think what also motivates Ezra is she reveals that the Ashla, the spirit of the galaxy, brought them together for the prophecy, and Kanan says that's the Force. Other cultures have a name for it, and I think that's when Ezra's like, oh, okay. So he has a little bit of understanding, because he's training to be a Jedi, but... So she starts sketching, like, these figures on the floor, and she says it will follow the fate of 3, which I think this is what we were watching it. Why is it always 3?
I don't...
Like, what are the ones in Clone Wars? The father, the son, and the
daughter.
Yeah. That's 3. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, it's always 3.
That's interesting you brought that up, because I was like, Mortis popped in my head when you said 3.
Yeah, Mortis arc. If you want to go in religion, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, that's 3.
Yeah. It's always a trinity.
A trinity of things, yeah. So there's the Fool, the Warrior, and the Child. And they... start the ritual or whatever, but Zeb, I think he just walks off or whatever. Ezra follows him and confronts him. And this is where we get this very kind of sad moment with Zeb sharing what happened and why. I think going back to why he didn't say he was captain, there's a lot of guilt that he feels like he failed his people. He was supposed to protect the royal family, which I have to say I was totally right about that. Like, when I think way back in like episode 1 when he said he was on the honor guard, I'm like, oh, did he protect the royal family?
Yeah,
I thought that early on.
I
yeah.
was thinking that as well. For some reason, Symbiotic Titan popped in my head with Lance, being the bodyguard of Alana. Yeah, I was thinking there was some royalty involved there, but this actually confirmed that theory.
And he says that, I think he says like a bomb went off, and when he woke up, everything was just completely gone.
Which I don't want to say I don't buy it, but how did he survive that?
Yeah.
Like, did the bow rifle have some superpower we don't know about and protected him, or?
I don't know.
Of course, we only know the people that had the bow rifles were the honor guard.
Honor guards, yeah. That's interesting. I never thought about that.
Are there other honor guard Lasat running around somewhere? Or?
Interesting theory, though. Like, maybe the rifle protected him or something?
That's my theory. I don't know. So how you can just wake up and you're still here and everything else is gone.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think he says that I failed my people that day, and Ezra kind of like motivates him, like, don't fail them now. Like, they're here.
Yeah, because I think before then, I think part of him is happy that some of his people are still alive, but a part of him is also like, well, they're just a reminder of that I failed.
Yeah.
Which is interesting that he also briefly mentions, he said, Kanan found me. So I'm thinking he might have been the first member of the Ghost Crew besides Kanan, Hera, and Chopper to join the crew. It's interesting that Kanan finds him because I think, I don't know what 4 stories they shared, but like his story is very similar to Kanan in that he has all this guilt of things that he could have done to help his people, like Kanan had with, having to leave Deva Balaba and all that. So I thought that was interesting that Kanan was the one that either recruited him or he didn't say recruited, he just says found, which wish we had more backstory.
Yeah, I do too. Oh, Ezra tells Zeb that, like, what could he have done against the entire Empire? But, so I feel bad for Zeb. He's like, he blames him. It's kind of like when you blame for yourself for something you
had no control over.
Yeah, no control of that situation.
I mean, in the moment, it's easy for us to say, well, you had no control over it, but I think when you're in that moment, like, you think there's a little part of you like, oh, I could have done X, Y, Z, but when it's pointed out to you by someone else, I think it's very validating for you to hear that as well. Which is a nice little brotherly moment between the two, I would say.
Yeah.
We're used to them bickering and stuff, but nice to see them, like, not do that.
Yeah, and I don't think they even bickered through this whole episode, really. That's what I was saying earlier about, like, their connection. Like, Ezra really wants to help him and help his people. Mm-hmm. And I think it shows growth with Ezra, but also Zeb as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So they come back into the room, or whatever, and they've done their chant, or whatever, and they said they're ready for Chopper's map. Now, why they had the chant before they pulled up the map, I don't know.
Becoming one with the Force, I'm not sure.
She says the child must show us the way, but then it's revealed the child is not Ezra, it's Zeb, who is a child of Lasat. And I think Ron tells him, like, use your bow rifle as the ancients once did, which I think also shows a culture there.
Now we're getting to a whole ancient culture of a culture we already know little to none about, which is interesting. And the fact that he activates his bow rifle by untaping parts of it.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like it had been taped together and not, so it couldn't be extended in that way, which is interesting. I don't know if it's like, I'm trying to think
security measure or something.
Maybe it's a security measure, but also like, the samurai that swears he'll never fight again, and he keeps his sword in the little, whatever it's called. Like, and I will only unlock it if whatever fate destiny calls me or whatever kind of thing. I don't know, I went to Samurai, my bad.
And they have these little yellow light beams, kind of spreading throughout the map. And, Zeb's kind of, when he undoes it, he's just like, okay, I'll play along, But then there's a shift when he's like, wait, that's it. That's Lyrasan. Like, he just knows, which I find interesting.
Yeah,
it kind of points out.
He also touches it to Chava's staff, and I'm like, what does her staff do? What's that? Like, what kind of magic-y kind of stuff does that have? Really, that it's interesting that he just innately knows that that's Lyrasan.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the first moment we get of Zeb, like, maybe this isn't baloney.
Yeah. And us as the audience, we're like, why is that little planet glowing on a map? We've already kind of seen something like this before, as far as, like, Ezra interacting with the prison list using the Force.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. So they're on their way to Lyrasan. And while they're in hyperspace, something kind of blocks her path. And I thought it was Callus, actually, because it's revealed that the communicator that Hondo gave Ezra is actually it's a tracking device.
Yeah.
So I thought it was Callus, but actually it's revealed it's this, like, giant, like, they said it like a star
cluster is what Hera calls it.
Oh, star cluster, okay.
Which, to me, sounds like a black hole. I mean, like, I don't know if that star cluster is an actual scientific name. I've never heard it.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong. I'm not a I'm not a physics person. But yeah, you see a star cluster or you see a black hole, and we have to keep in mind this is outer, like Kara says.
I was going to say that, yeah.
This is what comes with the dangerous territory when you're in uncharted space. So a space that's never been charted by any navigation. They don't know what's out there, kind of thing. And you don't want to go near a black hole because the gravitational pull is going to be so strong that it's just going to rip you apart.
Yeah.
As we see what happens with the TIE fighters.
At that moment, Callus also arrives, and Hondo's voice comes over the comm, and he's revealed he had a tracker that he gave to Ezra and led the Empire right to them. Again, Callus is a player here, which to me is important because of his history with not just Zeb, but, like, the Lasat people.
Yeah.
And we think he's the warrior, because we got the fool, the child, the warrior. But Chava kind of mystically says that he's playing his part, but then she tells Zeb that, in a way, he's all three parts?
Yeah, I think it's sort of like the fool being very dismissive, not wanting to accept that Lyrasan exists, to the child with that little bit of hope that it does exist, I think, to the warrior of actually leading the people to Lyrasan. I'm that's my interpretation of that.
Which I found interesting. I was not expecting I think the whole episode, the first time I watched it, I was looking for the three. I didn't realize it was Zeb the whole time. I didn't
realize he was going to be all three of them, yeah.
So the hyperdrive has been shut off at this point, because of the interference they've dealt with this star cluster or whatever. And so Zeb activates his bow rifle once again, and it, like, electrifies the Ghost cockpit and everything, and it spreads over the entire ship. And it just starts pushing the ship closer to that giant thing that could possibly rip their ship apart. Like you said, the TIE fighters are just destroyed. And I found it interesting here, Callus opens fire, but all blasts stray randomly away from the Ghost. So it's interesting that whatever Zeb's doing with his bow rifle, I don't know if it's through the Force or what, but it is literally protecting the ship from the anomaly, but also the Empire.
Yeah, that was interesting, seeing all the blasts kind of just stray away from it. I thought it had something to do with the gravity of the hole they're in, but yeah, I don't know.
And I love how you have Ezra and Kanan they look at each other and they kind of put their hand on Zeb. Because, like, it's Force type of thing. But also, I also just think it's because they love him and they want to support him.
Aww. Yeah, I like that moment too. I thought that was nice.
So Callus orders a retreat because they're going to get blown apart. The Ghost continues onward, and then I think the hyperdrive activates itself. Because I was like, I see it. I'm like, I don't know what you see, dude. All we're seeing is, like, The Anomaly and Sparks. Like, I don't...
The pretty colors, all psychedelia.
So I don't know if he was seeing something through the forest.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Or what was happening there. Oh, it says he takes him through one of the nebula's openings. I didn't see any openings when I was looking at it.
To me, it just looked like it went intangible. That's what the animation looked like to me. I could be totally wrong on that. But also the fact that Callus is being, like, such a...
Mm-hmm.
Literally says, everyone when he goes, like, should we retreat? He's like, no, I'm just gonna sit here and watch them die. I mean, I paraphrase. That's literally what he said. Then he smiles about it. I'm like, dude, you got problems.
Well, I mean, these has... Ugh, I can't talk. This has been a crew that he's been after for a while, so...
That's true.
But to revel in it is kind of...
A little dark side
sadistic,
there.
yeah. They arrive on the other side, and of course they have this... Oh, the music is just so beautiful and, like, I think fitting, and, like, you're like, what's gonna happen? But also, like, mystical, otherworldly.
It was definitely something that I think fit in with the world, but as far as, like, Star Wars music, we think John Williams, we think Goldstolt's The Planets. This was, like, a little bit different. Like, it still felt like it fit, but it was just, when I heard it, I was like, that's not really Star Wars, but I like it.
So they arrive on the other side, everyone's unconscious. Zeb is the last to wake. Then he turns around and he's like, I've never seen better. We're home. And at this point, I thought, when I first watched, it was like, great, there's 2 Lasats.
I did it again, but when we were watching, I was like, there's just them 2. I mean, chilling on this huge planet.
But then it's revealed that Lyrasan is where his people originally came from. So my question is, was there like a great migration to Lassan, or like what happened?
I'm sure in their history there's probably some sort of great migration, or maybe they had their own colony. They were like going out explore. We're gonna colonize this other Lassan planet. They named it Lassan, and then some people were still living. To me, it's almost like, you're not gonna get the reference, but it's like Krypton and
the planet Supergirl's on?
Yes, I can't think of it. It just left my brain.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
like a sister planet type of thing.
Yeah, like a sister planet. Like, same people, they're just in 2 different spaces.
Zeb has kind of become... It's kind of sweet how he's now the keeper of his world and his people. So if any other Lasats need help finding this planet, you know, he can take them there. Hopefully there's not always going to be an anomaly there. I'm hoping there's not.
Well, he's got the bow rifle. I would assume that would work in any type of ship. Or
that's true.
Things like that, which does make me wonder, like, going back to the prophecy, this is a fan theory. The Honor Guard were meant to survive because they have the weapons of the ancients to lead people back to Lyrasan. I could be completely wrong about that. But
yeah, because through this whole episode, Chava is like, everything's playing out how it's been prophesized. So maybe you're right. Maybe it was meant to happen this way. Maybe. Yeah. What did you rate this episode?
I gave it a 6.5.
That's what I gave it, actually.
I mean, I like that we get a lot of backstory on Zeb. I like that, we finally have this reveal that he's not the only one left, which I do wonder how the fandom took that. You know, maybe where fandom's not happy. I don't know why you wouldn't be happy that he's, like, not the last survivor. But I also think I had so many questions.
Me too.
About his backstory. Like, we would get pieces like, but tell me more. And then it would just kind of leave us hanging kind of thing, which, again, you don't need to know everything. A lot of the Ashla stuff is just so abstract to me.
Same.
I don't know why it's easier for me to believe in the Force than it is.
Same thing.
It's the same thing, but I struggled, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I put... The pacing is a bit slower than regular episodes because we are dealing... I think it's a lot of information that we're getting in.
A lot of exposition going on.
But I did write, mystical plot was a lot to take in for me.
Yeah, there was a lot to cram in that 22 minutes as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pacing-wise, I thought it was okay. It's just there was a lot of long shots of Zeb, like, with the bow rifle, just forever. And I'm like, when are we going to get to your planet? Because you're just zapping the ghost for, like, a good 3 minutes. I don't know what's happening.
I think that was trying to build up, like...
just building the tension.
Yeah,
I get it.
Make it more dramatic. But yeah, I was glad we finally got a Zeb episode. Some of my favorite moments was, of course, Zeb and Ezra's connections, which we talked about. Also, the animation of the anomaly itself and the music in that scene.
Yeah, that was really, really pretty animation.
I will say something I didn't touch upon earlier that I've been meaning to. Gron. So Gron is an interesting character in that, like I said, he served under Zeb, but he seems more willing to believe in the prophecy. Yeah. And I think there's a moment where Zeb is like, you can't believe this stuff. And he's like, what would you have us do? Fight? How did that serve us on our planet?
Which is interesting because they were a warrior people.
Right.
I mean, even Zeb says that when, I can't remember which, they were under fire a lot of the time. I can't remember which place they were being shot at, but he even says, I think Ron says, we don't fight anymore. And Zeb's like, what do you mean we don't fight anymore? Like, we're warrior people.
Yeah, he doesn't even want to fight. When they're surrounded by the Imperials, he's like, we don't fight. I'm like, you're warrior people, so I want to learn more about him. Like, what happened to him to make him...
I mean, he went from, like, honor guard, which is all about fighting, to being sort of very pacifist and believing in Lurasan and Ashla. Like, what was his arc? Was he disillusioned with everything that happened after Lasan? He's like, well, being warriors didn't really help us out, because at the end of the day, our planet was destroyed. I do wish that there could have been more interactions with Callus, like, specifically had he known that these are refugees from Lasan. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he ever knew that.
He probably didn't.
He was just or maybe he wouldn't have cared. I don't know. But it would be interesting to see how he would have responded to that information. I
mean, we're getting close to a big episode with Callus.
Are we really? Is it the one I'm thinking of?
I think it's called the Honorable Ones, where him and Zeb are stranded on that planet. Yeah, mm-hmm. So we're gonna get some more
details
and more arc, especially in 3 with him. Mm-hmm. His whole character. A little bit over my head, I will say.
Yeah, and again, I don't know. Maybe it's just culturally, Star Wars fans can accept the Force, but anything. I don't know.
Also, like, those 2 were the only ones that happened to survive was a little bit hard to take in.
Yeah, that's true, but I do want, again, we don't know that. We don't know if there's other survivors from Lasan. But again, my questions, have more questions. How did you survive?
Yeah.
How did Zeb survive?
But it is nice to know that I feel like I watched the Rebels recon of this, and I can't remember who said it, that this is like a great burden that has been lifted off of Zeb.
Yeah, I would say that as well. Get rid of that guilt that he shouldn't have been carrying.
But also realizing you're not the only one left. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.